will support. It has supported Sharia law. Sharia law is the highest law of the land. No law can be made that contradicts the principles of Islam, according to the Iraqi constitution and according to the Afghan constitution. And people were fooled. They thought because the Afghan constitution in particular also guaranteed freedom of conscience and freedom of religion, that that was at war ultimately with Sharia. Well, we saw which one won out with the Abdurrahman case, when a convert from Islam to Christianity was placed on trial, a trial with a death penalty offense for converting. It showed that Islamic law reigns supreme. We have seen that again and again and again. And so every time there is a democratic election in the Islamic world, the jihadists have either won or made significant gains. They obviously have the initiative in the Islamic world today. And so, you know, I wrote before any troops were in Iraq, I wrote in early 2003 that any attempt to democratize the Islamic world, and Iraq in particular, would fail because Islam has a character, and always has had a character, as a political and social system, as well as an individual religious faith. Now, I appreciate the President's strong stand against terrorism, but I think that we need to defend ourselves and consider that American defense is our first priority, and not undertake these Wilsonian schemes that I think are doomed to failure at the beginning to try to remake societies in the Islamic world. He likes to invoke Japan and Germany after World War II, but in Japan and Germany after World War II, the ideologies that fueled the militarism that had led to the war were discredited. The emperor said he wasn't a god, Nazism was broken. Nobody's going to stand up in 1946 and say he was a Nazi in Berlin. But political Islam has not been discredited. It's not even been challenged. And so how can it do anything but win out?
Hi, I'm Deborah Weiss with the Center for Security Policy.
Hi.
You mentioned that the mosques and madrasas in Pakistan, and I think you said Egypt, are teaching radical Wahhabi Islam. And I know Nina Shea is very focused on trying to get the Saudis to stop sending the radical books to the mosques and madrasas here,
yes.
80% of which are very extreme. And my question is, instead of focusing on how to force other countries not to teach it or how to force other countries not to send things here, what can we do to stop this country from having 80% of radical mosques and madrasas, and why can't we do it?
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent question. I think we can't do it because of the fact that this is a religion. And people think, well, this is freedom of religion. We can't interfere with freedom of religion. But you know something, just to take a very small example, the year 1 in the Islamic calendar, you know that there's an Islamic calendar that differs from the calendar that we use. The year 1 is not what you might expect. Sometimes when I'm speaking around the country, I ask audiences, what do you think the year 1 is in the Islamic calendar? And people invariably say, oh, it must have been when Muhammad was born, or when Muhammad died, or when Muhammad got his first revelation from God. Actually, it's none of those. The year 1 in the Islamic calendar is when Muhammad became a political and military leader, when he fled with the Hijrah, when he fled from Mecca to Medina and became for the first time a political leader, the leader of a polity. That's the year 1, and that, I think, is an essential, there's encapsulated in that an essential point, and that is that Islam is political inherently. It's a political ideology as much as it is a religion in the Western sense. And it needs to be approached by the government, by law enforcement as such, and subject to all the regulation of a political group. And I think that would do a great deal, were that approach adopted, to clarify what we can do and should do about what's being taught in the mosques. I mean, this has been going on for years. In 1999, 2 years before 9/11, Sheikh Mohammed Hisham Kabani, a Sufi sheikh, a Muslim himself, toured American mosques. He visited 114 American mosques, and then he testified before a State Department open forum that 80% of American mosques were under the control of extremists. This tallies with the amount of Saudi money that those mosques have been receiving in the United States, and it also tallies with the 2005 report that Deborah Weiss mentioned from Freedom House, which went into American mosques again and found incredible, breathtaking hate literature and Islamic supremacism being taught in those mosques and Islamic schools. This is a scandal. It's a national scandal, and nobody's paying attention to it. I think here again, out of political correctness and fear.
We'll take one more on this side, and then I'll go over here.
What do you think the next 2 to 4 years, Robert, as far as foreign policy is concerned, what do you think